This readathon is honestly one of my highlights of each year because I love middle grade and I am terrible, horrendous at reading it. So having this readathon to remind me that I adore it and that to remind you guys that children's books are not just for children but also for adults as well is super great. And I'm really excited to do my TBR for this, and I had so many books that I wanted to put on it. I'm going to do a separate second recommendations because this is already going to be a long video. And like every video, I don't necessarily read every book on a TBR because my process of TBRing is just to like throw a bunch of books because I really love planning and I really like checking off lists and like organizing it, but I'm also a huge mood reader, so it will depend on, I have multiple picks for each prompt, so depending on how I feel. Our first prompt is Jason Reynolds, and this is to read a prompt that is own voices but not focused on marginalization. And for this, I'm going to have The Shape of Thunder, who is the same author as Jasmine Warga over there, and I adore Other Words from Home, and I'm very excited to read her next middle grade book. And this is about two friends who were best friends and live side by side and haven't spoken in a year because at a school shooting, the one brother shot the one sister. And it's about grief and about family and friendship and coming back together and dealing with that. And I feel like it's going to be really heavy, but also really, really good. And I think that it will, I'm not sure if it's a novel in verse, but it will definitely be written very lyrically because she's a very, very talented writer. The next prompt is Grace Lynn, and this is to read a book that deals with mythology or storytelling. And for this one, I have Paloma Santiago and the River of Tears. And I'm really, really excited. This has Latinx mythology and is about river, and I don't know that much because I love going into books blind. And this is one of the Rick Riordan Presents books, and I've been meaning to read all of them in time, and I've enjoyed most of the ones that I've read. So my other prompt for this will be Arusha and the Tree of Wishes, and this is the third book in that series that is based on Hindu mythology, and it's so good. The first one I liked, the second one I thought was incredible, so I'm really excited to read the third one. And then we have Jacqueline Woodson, and this is to read a prolific or famous author, and I struggled with this so much. Even though this was the prompt that I submitted, I was like going through it and I was like, most of them I've read a lot. Like, I try to read a lot, so I probably definitely missed authors, but I couldn't find an author that I was thinking, so I was like, this is one that I wasn't expecting to read, but we're gonna read A Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, and this might be a little bit lower than the typical middle grade, but I am excited to read this. This is a story that I don't know very much. My friend made me watch the movie when I think I was like 12 or 13, but I don't remember much other than it's sad and it has to do with a pig, not a spider. The spider, I think, is actually killing her husband. Is it really dark? I don't remember, but this will be a quick book, and I'm sure there are others that I will accompany as well, but that is mine. And also read Jacqueline Woodson because she's one of my favorite authors. I should also say that we're not expecting you to do every prompt. If you're crazy like me and love doing every prompt and love completing lists, you can try to, but this is mostly just to have a pool of prompts for you to think of, so you don't actually have to. So the next one is Roshani Chokshi, and this is to read a middle grade book by an author that you read their YA or their adult book. Is Accidental Apprentice by Amanda Foody, and this is the first book in the Wild Lore series. She is one of my favorite YA books series. I really, really love The Ace of Shades and King of Fools, and I'm very excited to read more of her books, and especially this one. And because I follow her on Instagram, I've been able to like see all of her things from like the time she first announced she was doing it and like all of these things. So it's high time that I read this. And I think he's like a mushroom apprentice or something like that. I haven't learned that much about it because I kind of want to go in blind, but I'm very excited. I'm also going to be reading Ophi's Ghost by Justine Ireland, and this one is very special because Care from Wild Book Garden is hosting a giveaway for this, and how you enter is just by commenting on any of our TBRs. You can only do it once, but you can let us know by putting a handle or putting some way for us to contact you in there, and you have to be 18 or have your parents' permission and all of that stuff for us to know your mailing address. But other than that, you can just tell us what your favorite author in middle grade is, or if you haven't read a lot and you're using this as an opportunity to read more, just tell us an author or series that you're really excited to read. And this book is about Ophelia, and she is a black girl in 1922, and her father has just died in an accident or a horrendous thing. I'm not sure the way of his death, but she starts seeing ghosts after this, and she also has to work as a maid in the same house as her mother is working. So I think this is going to be definitely dealing with like Jim Crow era racism and also coming of age and a lot of hard issues, but also a lot of really important issues to be talking about. The next prompt is Tahereh Mafi, and this is a book that takes you out of this world, and my first prompt for this is a book I've been meaning to read for so long. Ever since I heard it, I was in love with it, because this is Tilly and the Book Wanderers, the first book in Pages & Co., and this follows a girl who can enter novels, and she meets Anna Green Gables my absolute love, and she also interacts with like Alice in Wonderland and I think a couple other people. So it's not the traditional take you out of the world, but it is take you into different worlds and to solve things, and I'm super excited. I also am really excited to read Furthermore by Tahereh Mafi. I read Witchwood, which is the second book in her companion middle grade series, and I really loved it, but I also want to know more about the Alice character that is the person in this one. And I actually might read Witchwood too because it's so dang good. It's such a great book that deals with grief. Talking about Lucy Maud Montgomery, we have the next prompt that is based on her, and this is to read a classic or to reread a favorite. And this one I'm going to be reading Emily of New Moon, and this is one of her next famous books after Anne of Green Gables series, and this deals a lot with loneliness and what it means to be an orphan, what it means to feel like an isolated person, and she captures that so well, having drawn from her own life experience of being bullied and being isolated because of her family situation. And I'm really excited to read this one, and I've been looking forward to read it for so long, so that's going to be lovely. The next prompt is based on Kacen Callender, and this is to read a queer book, and since I've been meaning to read them for a very long time, I thought it was a great time to be able to read them, and the book that I picked from them is King and the Dragonflies, and this is about Kingston, whose brother has recently died, and he is convinced that he is a dragonfly and that he's able to reconnect with him. Meanwhile, his best friend has come out as gay, and he isn't sure how he feels about this. I think there might be forming a romance between them, but he's struggling with his own internalized homophobia and also not dealing with the grief of his brother. I'm also really excited to read Zenobia July, and this is by Lisa Bunker, and this is about a trans girl who has moved across the country after transitioning, and she's living with her aunts in Maine, and she is loving hacking and loving this new school until there's mean comments online, and she has to deal with that. Then we have Katherine Applegate, and this is to read an animal protagonist or supporting character. And confession time, I really don't like animal side characters or protagonists or anything. Like, it's not a trope that I like. So I chose one that does deal with animals but has it as more of a symbol, I think. And this is Res Dogs, and this is by Jocelyn Barak. And this is actually set during COVID, which I didn't know. So this is about Milan, and she is a girl who is visiting her grandparents on their reservation when COVID hits, and she's stuck there. And during this time, she learns about the genocide of the indigenous people, especially through chemical warfare, and also about her grandfather's time in residential schools. And I think that they view dogs as a way of protecting them. Our next prompt is Kwame Alexander, and this is to read a novel in verse, which is one of my favorite ways to read novels. I absolutely adore this kind of telling. I love poetry, and I love the way that it can intricately get into the mind of a character and tell a story that is so difficult in such beautiful prose. And the first one we have for here is Land of the Cranes, and this is by Alita Salazar, and this is about a Latinx girl who is living in a detention center after her family is put there. And I believe that she is being held at the border for refugees and migrants, and about the hardship and the challenges and also the hope in family, and by the looks of it, has really strong family ties in this as well. Another novel in verse that I'm really excited to read is Red, White, and Whole, and this is by Roshani Chokshi, and this is about an indigenous girl whose mother is diagnosed with leukemia at the same time that she's going through the struggle of being in a school where she's the only indigenous kid, and she really wants to celebrate that part of her culture and her family and connect with her mother, but she's also feeling like she has to appear more white or have more white customs and stuff like that to fit in school. Our next prompt is about Francine Harding, and this is to read a book that challenges the assumptions on middle grade and the idea that it's only for children or that it can't deal with hard issues. So these are going to be some hard-hitting books, but I love hard-hitting books, so I'm very excited to read them. And the first book we have is Genesis Begins Again by Alicia D. Williams, and this is about a girl who is named Genesis, and she's struggling with internalized racism and how much she hates herself. Like, even reading the description, it was hard to get through. And she has a verbally abusive family, which I think from context clues might be white, and that might be why she is saying all of these things she hates about herself, but I'm not sure completely. The next book that I have is I Can Make This Promise by Christine Day, and it says in the synopsis that it's actually based on the real life person's story, and it is about a girl whose mother was adopted by a white family, so she knows nothing about her culture or anything. She's indigenous, and she doesn't think that she can find anything from her mother until she finds a box in the attic with letters addressed. And it's about her and her friend coming and figuring out about her history, about her family, and about her heritage. The prompt for HennaCon is to read a book that focuses on themes of family, and as you can probably tell, that's one of my favorites, so we have a lot of books on here, but particularly we have Ophi's Ghosts, Res Dogs, and Red, White, and Whole, and I'm really excited to read all of them, and I just gave you the synopsis. And then we also have Anna Maranhão, and this is to read a book with a trope you love, and as I said, I love tropes with family. I also just really love sadness. Like, trying to find happy books is just not something for me. Really dealing with hard-hitting books, so a lot of these are stories that hit hard, and I'm definitely going to enjoy them. But I will do one last book that I'm really excited that didn't fit in any of the tropes exactly, but this is Ancestors Approved, and this is a collection of short stories by indigenous authors, and it is about all of these youths and children coming together at a festival and really just celebrating their culture and celebrating friendship and family and all of those things. So I'm really excited to read that as well, and I'm really falling in love with short stories. So these are the prompts and the books that I'm planning on reading and hoping to really enjoy. Tell me which books you're most excited for, which is your favorite middle grade, and put that author and your handle in there if you want to enter the giveaway for Orphe's Ghost. And I will see you next time, and happy reading and writing. I should have learned how to say that. Anna Maranhão. Yeah, I think so. Breathing is so dang hard.